was staying at some crappy Motel 6, shady area of town. His room was the last room at the end of the hallway on the top floor. In the middle of the night, on the last night he was in town, he was awoken by the phone ringing in his room. He groggily wakes up and answers the phone. It was the front desk, and they say something along the lines of, "Sorry to wake you, but we've been receiving a couple of reports about rooms being broken into and some stuff being stolen. We are calling to make sure that your door is locked and that you are safe." My father replies that he is fine and hangs up the phone. He decides to go double check that he did lock his door. As he sits up in bed, he notices that the door to his room is ajar. Being spooked, he cautiously checks the room and finds that nothing is missing and no one else is in the room. He creeps to the door and peeks out. Sitting right outside his room, on the windowsill of the hallway window, is his shaving kit. Creeped out of his mind, he quickly grabs it and locks the door. After he calms down a bit, he calls down to the front desk and says, "Hey, you just called me about the break-ins around the hotel, and I just wanted to report that my room was broken into when I was sleeping. Nothing's stolen, and I'm fine. Figured you would like to know." The front desk replied, "You must be mistaken. We never called your room, and we haven't received any reports of break-ins." I hike a lot in remote areas. I was hiking in Pennsylvania, miles from anything. Not even on a trail, just bushwhacking through the woods, when I come up on this guy about 200 feet away, sitting on this log. Just sitting there, wearing jeans and a hoodie over his head, staring at me. I wave, but he doesn't wave back. I start walking over and wave again and yell something like, "Wow, I wasn't expecting to see anyone else out here." No response. I was getting a little nervous, but I had already committed, so I kept approaching the man. Then I started noticing rock piles and circles and things hanging in the trees. I get about 10 feet from him, and this freaking pheasant takes off, scaring the crap out of me. That's when I notice it's a mannequin, sitting there dressed up, surrounded by strange rock piles and things hanging in the trees, miles from anything. I hightailed it out of there, thinking maybe I had come upon something I was not supposed to see. Back in 2003, while stationed in Portsmouth, Virginia, I was going through a divorce and as such had moved back into the barracks. Reeling from the stress of the divorce, I had trouble sleeping and would go for a run at all hours. One such morning around 4 a.m., I took off for a quick 5-mile run. Portsmouth has some pretty dodgy areas, and my run took me straight through one of them. As I got to the top of a bridge, I saw someone standing on the side of the road. It was odd, but not completely unheard of, that I would see a non-runner standing somewhere other than a bus stop. Anyhow, he watched me the entire time I ran closer to him, and as I got closer, he turned his back to me, but continued to watch me over his shoulder. Since I tend to become more friendly in awkward situations, I said hi as I ran past him, but I picked up my pace. After a couple minutes, I had pretty much forgotten about the encounter. As I continued my run, there was a bridge that went over an interstate. After I crossed the bridge, I about had a heart attack as I saw the same guy standing on the side of the road again. No cars passed me, and there was no way he could have gotten from where we first met to here in that amount of time without driving past me. Again, being nervous, all I could say was, "Man, you're fast." I'm pretty sure I broke a personal speed record after that. I was fishing with my uncle, and we were in a small aluminum boat, just sort of floating down a river, looking for a good place to drop anchor and start fishing. We went around a bend in the river and saw the scene of a small plane crash on a steep slope on one side of a hill leading down to the river. The plane was on its nose and kind of crumpled. There were probably 5 people standing around. 2 of them were in suits. There was a blue tarp on the ground with a white sheet over it. I assumed that was a body. That wasn't really the creepy part, though. Next to the body, not covered in a white sheet, was what appeared to be a collection of body parts. They weren't even recognizable as human, except that one of them had a shoe on it. It was eerie, because for the past 2 hours, we had been floating in the middle of nowhere, with nothing but the sound of the river, and then out of nowhere, we come around a turn with just a total scene of horror. I've seen fatal car crashes that weren't nearly as creepy. This was back when I was a little kid in Eastern Europe. My cousin and I were walking through the woods. We were maybe 8 or 9 years old. It was more like a large urban forest, big enough to get lost in. Suddenly, we saw a man standing in the bushes. He was wearing nothing but tidy whities, dress shoes, and a watch, and had his back toward us. We kind of just froze standing there, staring at him. He must have heard the rustling behind him and slowly turned around. He had the creepiest smile on his face and started slowly moving towards us while making a beckoning motion with his finger. I remember being frozen with fear for a few moments before turning around to look at my cousin, who was no longer there. I could only see his heels flashing in the distance as he was running away. Of course, I followed immediately, and I don't think I've ever ran that fast before or since. I went to my aunt and uncle's house one family vacation about 10 years ago. We drove from South Texas to some small town in Missouri. I can't remember the name. We arrived there about 1 a.m. Family consisted of myself, 2 younger sisters, my mother, and my father. Most of the family was hungry from the long drive and wanted to see if McDonald's was open. I was tired from the long car ride and wanted to stay at the house. Mom said one of my sisters would be staying as well. I settled down into the living room watching TV, slightly dozing off. I can remember that I started hearing pitter-patter down the hallway and assumed my sister was just running around. I get a call from my mom asking what I wanted to eat, and in the background I can hear both of my sisters arguing. I hear a giggle behind me. I stand straight up and look around. Nothing. I asked my mom if my sister ended up going with them, which she confirmed. I stood in the corner of the room until everyone got back. This happened recently. It was midnight. I was at the train station waiting for my train to arrive, and there was this really tall guy walking in my direction, carrying a suitcase. As he came closer, I noticed he was struggling to carry the suitcase, as it looked rather heavy, and oddly enough, it was leaking some sort of liquid. Not water, but it seemed thicker, darker. As this guy approached me, he ordered me to take his suitcase. The tone of his voice was a little aggressive, and he didn't sound sober. Taking a closer look at him, I noticed he was covered in dirt up to his face and had cuts on his forearms. I said sorry and started to walk away. My train starts to arrive, and the guy follows me saying things I couldn't quite understand. I hop on the train, and the door shuts. I turn around and look, and he is outside pointing at me, yelling gibberish. The train slowly starts to depart, and suddenly he punches the window in frustration, with his eyes locked on me. I was very relieved that I was on the train, and fellow commuters looked at me puzzled with all the commotion of me and that weird guy. It really creeped me out. I've always wondered what was inside that suitcase, and I'm sure your imagination will come up with the same thing that mine did. When I was about 10, I was having a sleepover at my friend Amy's house. I was sleeping on the mattress on the floor, and it was positioned as if you sat up, you looked directly down the hall into the living room. Amy's mom's bedroom was to the left, and the bathroom was on the right. I still remember this very clearly. Amy was a bit of a scaredy cat. Everything scared her. I remember the dogs barking next door woke us up. She was scared and tried to get into bed with me. I was like, it's just dogs. Go back to bed. She was scared and went to sleep with her mom. It was summertime, so it got light pretty early. I woke up and saw Amy's aunt sitting on the couch staring at me. Amy's aunt was in the Air Force and would visit when she was on leave. I remember thinking, why is she staring at me? She looked away, and I just lay there looking at her. It was around 5:15 a.m. I eventually fell back to sleep and woke at a more reasonable hour and asked Amy where her aunt was. She looked at me puzzled and told me that she wasn't there, that she was far away in a different city. I swear it was not a dream, and there was some lady that was sitting there. I was on a cross-country drive by myself heading out west, and because I was solo, I didn't want to waste money and time on a motel when I could just grab some sleep in my car. At around 11 or 12 at night, I arrive at a rest stop in the middle of nowhere. I think it was somewhere in Louisiana. The nearest exits were about 20 miles apart from each other, and all of the towns around me had a population of about 300 people max. As I was laying in my car at a rest stop sleeping, I don't know what caused me to wake up, but I opened my eyes and saw a man in front of the driver's side window staring into my car. There were no other cars around, except for like one big rig. I don't know what he was doing there at 3 a.m., but it scared the hell out of me, because it was literally just the highway and nothing else nearby. Nothing. The guy tried to open my door, and I just sat there in fear. He eventually left, and I don't think he noticed that I was awake. But after he walked away, I turned on my car and continued driving. It's crazy thinking how things would have gone if I had forgotten to lock my door. A few weeks ago, my girlfriend and I were sleeping together when I woke up to her saying, "What are you doing?" She sometimes talked in her sleep, but this sounded so coherent and urgent that it jolted me awake, and I asked what she was talking about. She then woke up and said she thought she saw someone at the end of the bed. Thinking it was just a dream or a semi-awake hallucination, we thought nothing of it and went back to sleep. About an hour later, I woke up and saw someone standing at the edge of the bed with the sheets wrapped up and twisted around their neck. I didn't know what to do, but the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "What are you doing?" My girlfriend then woke me up. I had been dreaming and had the exact same dream that she did and said the exact same thing. When I was growing up, one of my best friends told me about a very creepy situation involving him, his younger brother, and a man in the window. When my friend and his little brother were younger, they shared a bedroom. They are some years apart, but his younger brother was born with a multitude of different health issues, including multiple sclerosis, and he's confined to a wheelchair and cannot care for himself. To keep an eye on him overnight when his parents couldn't, they shared a bedroom. One night, my friend randomly woke up for no particular reason happened to glance over at his younger brother, but noticed something very startling. A strange silhouette of a man wearing a top hat was looking in through the window behind his younger brother's bed. The first thing my friend did was jump up and turn the light on, and then ran into his parents' room to tell them what he saw. When his parents came back into their room to investigate, his younger brother was having a seizure in his bed. A few of his family members say it was his younger brother's guardian angel standing in the window that night. My friend believes it was death. It's all pretty unsettling to me. A few years ago, I went to a Christmas party. That night, my housemates went home earlier. Well, I decided to stay and get in the Christmas spirit with a few other friends. I ended up getting pretty hammered and got home around 3 a.m. Instead of going straight to bed, I got another beer inside and then went out the back porch to have a smoke and look at the stars. I was outside a couple of minutes when I see the light go on in the kitchen. My housemate looks out the window and sees me out back. I wave and generally look like a drunk idiot. He just gets a glass of water and goes to bed. I finish my smoke and my beer, and I do the same thing. The next morning we're rehashing the previous night when he mentions getting up and seeing me having a smoke in the backyard. Who came back from the party with you last night? I give him a weird look and reply, no one. I was out there alone. He insists, nah man, there was someone out there with you, behind you on the porch, when you were looking inside waving. To this day, he stands by that this is what really happened. Whoever it was standing right behind me the whole time. I saw no one and heard nothing. It gives me the chills every time I think about it. Back in high school, probably junior year, I was in a long-distance relationship with a girl from several states away. She would visit a few times a year, and when she did, we obviously spent as much time together as possible. One night, we were kind of making up from a fight we had had, and we drove up in my dad's truck to basically the lover's lane of the area, a dirt cul-de-sac at the end of a road on a mountainside. From this little lot, you could look out over the town at night, and it was pretty cool, which is why it was kind of a popular place to go. So we're parked in the truck just off the road, looking out over the town and cuddling while we talk out our issue. Like many trucks, it had a small hatch window on the back of the cab, facing the bed of the truck. We opened this window to let some fresh air in. At some point during our talk, another vehicle pulled up along the cul-de-sac. Since I didn't make it clear before, the cul-de-sac didn't really have a curb all the way around it, because it was partially dirt, so you could pull off the actual road and out onto the flat area overlooking the town. We had pulled off the road like that, but the other vehicle stayed in the area with the curb, so we would have to go right past them to get back onto the road. This vehicle pulls up, and a bunch of guys a little older than us get out and start messing around. It seemed like they probably were doing some drinking, but maybe not. The thing is, they had left their headlights on, and their car was facing into the back of the truck, so their lights were shining right on us, and it was really annoying. We ignore them for a while, figuring they're probably just being idiots, and will eventually leave. Then, we get curious about what they're talking about, because we can hear them talking loudly through the open back window, and we start listening in and picking up pieces of their conversation. It gradually became clear that we were the center of their attention, and they seemed to be working themselves up to doing something. I don't remember exactly what they were saying, except for something that one of them said that sticks very clear in my memory. I swear, I'll do it. At this point, I am becoming nervous and put the keys in the ignition, telling my girlfriend that I wasn't interested in finding out what exactly was going on. So now, we're both watching nervously out the back window as we listen to them egging each other on to this mysterious dare when a few of them start walking toward the truck. They're maybe 15 yards away, and I don't want to make an idiot of myself in front of my girlfriend by immediately flipping out, but I do turn on the truck and put it in reverse, but not moving yet. When they saw the brake lights, they started walking faster, and that's when I hit the gas and turned the truck around and started driving back to the road. But like I said, their car was between where we were and the road, so driving back to the road takes us right past them. As we're passing their group, a couple of them run. One of them jumps onto the back bumper, grabbing the tailgate. Now, whatever traces of doubt that had been there about whether or not we were the target of something was gone. So I floored it, and the guy fell off. I don't know if he got hurt. I don't care. It looked like they were starting to get into their car as well, so I booked it out of the area, and we didn't see them again, nor did we ever return to that place. I still have no idea what would have happened if we hadn't gotten out of there, and that, to me, is the scary part. I'd like to think that they were just trying to scare us and wouldn't have actually done anything, but at the same time, I've heard stories of people at places like that